Hi, I'm Ginger Leigh with On the Rogue, brought to you by songwriters across Texas. We are here at GSD&M during South by Southwest 2023 for the PBS ACL Live Bloody Mary Brunch, and I am standing with the legendary two of the members of the Zombies. This is Rod Argent and Colin Blunstone.
Thank you.
Hello, guys.
Hi.
It is an honor and a pleasure, and your show was fantastic.
Oh, thank you, Ginger. That's really nice of you to say.
So how do you feel like you've changed in your performance since you began in the 60s?
Well, in a way, I think that we approach it in exactly the same way, because we don't know any other way, really. You know, we never try and, I don't know, practice moves or do anything that's not natural. And it's the same with the writing, with the recording. We only know one way to do it, and that is to do it for real, really. Or do it how we feel, and just hope that actually makes a contact with the audience.
Absolutely. We've always done that. We write the best songs we can, we record them the best we can, and then we go out and perform them the best we can. So it's quite simple. We've never followed trends, and we're not trying to copy anybody. That's it. Always has been the same.
Well, you're very unique, that's for sure. I like the concept of, you guys have been around, you've done multiple albums, you've had charted songs, hits for, decades now, and lots of touring, of course. And you've had lots of variations of the actual group, correct?
We have, yeah.
Yeah. But I love that, you guys have this sort of indie feel. Like you're not big major label band, but you have had big major label type successes.
Yeah, we have, yeah.
But you're kind of indie.
It does,
Yeah,
because
everything's
we prefer it to be like a small scale in a way. Like for instance, the album that we've just done, which is called Different Game. It was the first album we've done since Odyssey and Oracle. Odyssey and Oracle was our really big album before that, and actually it continues to be. In fact, it sells more every year now than it did when it first came out.
Yeah.
Even though Time of the Season was actually on that album. But that album was done because we were frustrated with how our singles had been sounding, being produced by somebody else. And it was in the air that we might split up for various reasons. And we thought, and Chris White was the other writer of that time with me, but we wrote separately. And we said, if we are going to break up, we've got to leave a legacy. Even if we mess up the recording, we've got to try and produce an album ourselves that is as close as possible to the way that we hear the songs in our minds. It's not to say another producer wouldn't be great doing it, but we want our own version of how the song should sound. And this is exactly what we've done with this new album. We've recorded it in my studio at home. It was just a totally controlled project. We did it live in a very old-fashioned way.
Cool.
So we wanted to try and capture the takes with everybody playing in the room at the same time, rather than build things up layer by layer, which I've done many times in the past too.
Sure.
And it was such a joy doing it. It was really a joy. We had a ball, and even though it was done over a very long period of time, because of COVID, very much, we couldn't do this for a while, but that was very important to us. The actual recording of each track, apart from maybe overdubbing some harmonies, like group harmonies afterwards, was usually about 4 hours. And you get that thing which you will know all too well, that you might get 6 or 7 takes that sound good, nothing wrong with them at all, but one of them just captures something.
Yep.
And that really is the magic of the whole thing for me.
Well, I can't wait to listen to the whole new album, Different Game.
Yeah.
Okay, so what is Different Game referring to?
Actually, Different Game, the song, refers to something which I'm not going to spell out. It's nothing to do with me, but it was to do with a group actually that I know and knew, and they've broken up now. But they had a sort of renaissance, and when they got back together again, it was much later in their careers. And one of the guys in the group, everything didn't seem to be as smooth and as easy as it was when he first started. When they first set out, I don't know how old they were when they first set out, probably 18, as we were, and so much about the way they felt then and their lives was so much more comfortable, much easier. It felt easy to create music. When they got back together again, it was all mixed up with all sorts of business things, lots of other things, and this particular guy was very unhappy but he blamed his unhappiness on the other guys in the group, not the fact that he was much older, and the fact that his life had changed.
Right.
You know, and really that was the trigger for the song. But I always try and write songs that have a bit of a universal theme. So I also wrote it so people could bring their own experiences to the song and say, well, you know, that sort of frustration is, maybe that's how I felt as I got older.
Something people can relate to when they're listening.
Well, that's what you always try and do, I think.
Well, you have the new song out, Love You While I Can.
Yeah.
And that's very much a relatable song for anyone who knows love.
That was written unbelievably about someone we both know. It was Chris and Cindy. They got married at my place.
Okay.
And I said to Colin, why don't we surprise them on the day with a piano and voice version of a song that I write? So I wrote Love You While I Can. But it wasn't, we weren't quite ready to do it. So they didn't hear that. But I laid a demo down myself of it anyway. Played it to them in the control room. And they went to jelly, you know. So it was lovely. But, so that at least they heard it. But it also, so it was triggered by them, and because they were both in their second marriages, and it was like, you know, we've met each other and we know that this time it's for real, and it sort of says, without thinking about it and without having to talk to each other, we both know that this is going to be the real thing. We don't even have to discuss it, you know?
Right.
And that could relate to, you know, huge numbers of people in the world, and I always like that people then think, oh God, that's exactly how I felt when we first got together, or whatever, you know. Yeah,
well, writing those songs that become the soundtrack to people's lives, which by the way, you guys have done for a very long time. So I was born after you guys started, but I was raised on a lot of your music. Yeah. My parents had great taste in music, so I mean, let's just say. But yeah, all that universal. So I'm dying. I really wanted to start this interview by saying, "What is your name and who's your daddy?" I was dying to do it, and I just totally spaced. So that song, for example, hit song, great tune.
Absolutely. It was the last song written for Odyssey and Oracle, which was the last album that the original Zombies recorded in 1967. We recorded it in Studio 3 in Abbey Road on a very, very tight budget. And as I remember it, the song was written by Rod, and it was written in the morning, and we recorded it in the afternoon. So, I mean, famously, I didn't really know the melody that well, so things got a bit heated in the studio because we just had this really small budget, and we were running out of money. And it happened I was recording with a big clock right in front of me, and I could see the time ticking away. And so it always amuses me because Rob was being very patient and saying, no, I want this phrase on the beat, this phrase push or whatever. And I ended up saying, listen, you come in and sing. And he said, no, you're the lead singer. And it got very, very heated while we're singing. It's the time of the season for loving.
Yeah.
But what was going on in the studio was exactly the opposite.
Loving, come on, remember the love, guys.
Yes.
But you didn't mumble through this one, right?
I didn't mumble through this one. Tell her no, there's a lot of mumbling.
Yep.
There's a lot of mumbling in that one.
Well, y'all's harmony parts are incredible. I read that one of you were in choir growing up.
Me, yeah.
You were in choir growing up. So you really honed in on harmonies starting at that point?
It was a wonderful time for me, really, because I grew up loving music and having a propensity for it, but I remember my parents buying me a harmonica when I was about 6 or 7 years old, and I could immediately play it because I could sort of see, somehow I could see the steps in front of my eyes and when a half step should be there. You know, it was just like a very, I felt at home doing it all. But my mum just liked very popular classical arias and things like that. My dad was in he led a semi-pro dance band from the age of 17 to the age of 83. So I could see that he was happiest when he was playing piano, although he didn't often do it at home, but he was happiest playing piano. And then and we were a very working class family, but this was unusual for a working class family, but my mum, when I was about 9 or 10, said, you should be in a choir. And I just went along with it, and I went along to this cathedral. It just happened to be a fantastic choir. The organist and the master of the music died, and a new master of music came who was only 26 years old, and he turned out to be a wonderful Bach organist. And for the first time in my life I heard Bach, and when he was playing Bach, it was just outrageous. And I remember when I was 11, I think he put on a performance of Bach's St Matthew Passion. So obviously I was singing the chorus part, they had soloists and things. And I remember singing that first chorus and just melting, just thinking, wow, what is this music? It's just wonderful. But it sort of imbued me with the sense of harmony without, because I'm basically self-taught, but without having to go through all the study, which I'm not putting down at all. No. But it was like osmosis. It was just a natural way of getting it all in, and I'm sure that helped me, throughout working with the Zombies, because we did harmonies right from the beginning, Colin.
Absolutely. The thing that made the Zombies different, I think, we started actually in 1961. We were a keyboard-based band, but it wasn't fashionable at all, and we always sang three-part harmony, which wasn't fashionable either. So in some ways it rewarded us because we were very different, but I think we lost a lot of work early on because we just were so different, but we've always sung harmonies.
Yeah. Well, you stuck to it, and look, I mean, this many years or decades, I should say, into your career, you're releasing a new album. Mm-hmm. You're here doing South by Southwest, playing a bunch of shows, and a movie premiere. I think the private premiere was on Tuesday here during South by.
Yeah.
And tell me about that. How does that feel? You have a film out about you guys. What is it called?
It's called Hung Up on a Dream.
That's what I thought.
And it's honestly, we all had our huge reservations before this was done because we were not managed well when we started, and there was almost no archive footage that I was aware of. So I thought, how are you going to make a documentary? It's going to be embarrassing, and I didn't want it to happen. But anyway, it went ahead. We did many hours of interviews. There was lots of stuff going on. It was directed by Robert Schwartzman, who's from the Coppola family. Tom Hanks got on board as an executive producer, and we sat down and we watched it, and I was really moved. Robert's done the most fantastic job. It's paced wonderfully. It moves through the whole thing at pace. It goes from being, to me at least, fascinating, and then amusing, very amusing, and then suddenly from nowhere, incredibly moving. And you'll have to see what I mean by watching the film. Really,
I will.
I can't really describe why that is.
That was super intriguing right there. I mean, I will see it the moment it's out.
Yeah. And for us, it was a very emotional experience.
It was.
To sit there and see 60, 65 years of your life flash by. It's an hour and 40 minutes, I think. But I mean, to try and get 60 years into an hour and 40 minutes,
He's done it.
He's done it, and it's so an overwhelming experience. I hope for the general public, but certainly for us.
It got a standing ovation.
It did get a standing ovation.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I cannot wait to see it. Congratulations on that too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So many great successes, lots of stuff going on for you guys.
Yeah.
I mean, you're exposing yourself to an audience that's potentially not familiar with your music, being here at South by.
Do you know what? A lot of them are. It's unbelievable. Our manager, Cindy, was sharing with me some algorithms because she goes into all that side of things. We never see the algorithms. And she said, do you know, the algorithm shows your major streaming audience, the ages are between 22 and 34. I just could not believe that.
Well, your sound is timeless, but it's also uniquely yours, and I think it's a sound that's just beautiful right now. And I think that the younger people are just going to devour your material, and congratulations on getting it in front of them during South by and beyond. I know y'all are touring a lot. I know you have other things you have to get to.
Yeah.
But thank you for taking the time to talk with me.
It's been a pleasure.
And y'all are just precious, and your music's great, and you're legends, and I appreciate your time.
Thanks so much, Ginger. Thank you.
You bet. Have a good rest of your South by.
We will.
Yes, we will.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Oh, thanks very much.
You're welcome. Thank you, everybody. I'm Ginger Leigh with On the Rogue, brought to you by songwriters across Texas, the Zombies.